In our last video, we talked about the cell division and why cell division is important. We discussed the cell cycle, talking about how the cell cycle is used in cell division. Cell division is important, we said, because of growth. Cell division enables us to grow and become taller. It also enables us to repair damaged cells. If you fall, break a leg, burn yourself, cut your leg, it rejuvenates and divides to produce new cells that are healthy. We also talked about how cell division enables us to reproduce, and we're going to look at that in just a minute. We talked about mitosis is the division of body cells to help us grow and repair cells that are damaged. We also talked about the cell cycle, how interphase is where the cell spends most of its time, 95% of the life of a cell is spent in interphase. And we talked about the simple words that you could use to help remember each stage of the cell cycle and each phase of mitosis, which is the second stage of cell cycle. First stage, interphase, chromosomes copied. That's where DNA is copied to prepare for cell division to make sure those two daughter cells have the same information. During our second stage of the cell cycle, we have four phases. We have prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. In prophase, we said the chromosomes condense. You know, we talked about the chromosomes are the DNA and the proteins within the nucleus before they're condensed. Well, in prophase, that chromatin condenses and forms rod structures. These rod structures in metaphase line up, so in chromosomes align. And then in anaphase, the chromosomes separate. These rod structures are pulled apart by spindle fibers. And then in telophase, which is the last phase of mitosis, we have the chromosomes relax. You see the nucleus form, and it's ready to separate and become two daughter cells in the last stage of the cell cycle, which we call cytokinesis, where two daughter cells are produced. Now that is mitosis, where body cells divide. Today we are going to look at meiosis. And this is cell division process used to produce the cells animals use for sexual reproduction. Animals produce offspring from the union of two cells. Sexual reproduction occurs when two different cells join to create a new organism. Meiosis is used to create these special cells called gametes. So through the process of meiosis, gametes are formed, and these two gametes, one from the female and one from the male, are produce an offspring. Gametes are sex cells. They differ from normal cells by having only half the number of chromosomes. You remember in our body cells, we talked about there was 46 chromosomes. Well, in the gametes, there's half that number, so you have 23 chromosomes in gametes. There are two types of gametes. You have the male gamete, which is the sperm, and you have the female gamete, which is the egg or the ova. Why only half, you might ask? Why is there just half the number of chromosomes in a gamete than there is a chromosome in a body cell? Let's look at that. If two ordinary cells joined, you had this diploid cell of 46 chromosomes and this diploid cell of 46 chromosomes. The resulting organism would have twice the number of chromosomes it is supposed to have. In other words, 46 plus 46 would equal 92. That's way more than what we're supposed to have. When gametes join, the new organism have the correct number of chromosomes, because remember, gametes have half the number. So gametes have 23 from the gamete from the female, which is the egg, and 23 from the male gamete, which is the sperm, which would be 46, and that is our goal. There are two, in mitosis, we only had one cell division. But in meiosis, we don't just divide once, we divide twice in order to get the correct number. So interphase, meiosis, the cell goes through interphase just like it did with mitosis. In interphase, the cell grows to its full size. It forms organelles. It goes about its daily functions, getting rid of waste, bringing in minerals and nutrients for the cell to grow. It does all that. It duplicates its DNA and information and prepares to divide just like the body cells in mitosis. In meiosis, though, we're producing sex cells, which remember have half the number of chromosomes, so it has to divide more than once. In meiosis, in phase 1 meiosis, it goes through all of the phases. It goes through prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and it splits off into two. Then it goes through the processes again in meiosis 2, and we're going to look at each one of them on our next slide. The first division of meiosis is prophase 1. This is where each chromosome duplicates and you are able to see them under a microscope. They're no longer chromatin, they are chromosomes, and you're able to see them, and they get ready to line up in metaphase 1. Homologous chromosomes align at the equatorial plate. That means at the center. In the center, they line up. Homologous means they're the same. They have the same information in the chromosomes. Anaphase 1, these homologous, meaning the same pairs, separate with sister chromatids remaining together. You remember how in anaphase, the chromatids move to opposite poles? Same thing's occurring right here. Then in telophase, the two daughter cells are formed with each daughter cell containing only one chromosome of the homologous pair. So each daughter cell just has one, and then it doesn't stop there. It pinches off and they become two daughter cells. And then we go through stage 2 division. We go through the second division. This is where the gametes actually form. The one thing I need you to remember, especially if some of you are writing these things down, on prophase 2, I need you to remember that the DNA does not replicate before it. It doesn't replicate except in phase 1. When interphase occurs, it replicates, and it does not replicate again in meiosis 2. No replication occurs. Make sure you star that, underline it, put it in all caps. But remember that in prophase 2, no replication has occurred. Metaphase 2, the chromosomes do just like they did in meiosis 1 and mitosis. They line up in the middle. And then in anaphase, the centromeres divide. Chromatids are pulled apart to opposite poles. And then in telophase 2, the cell division is complete. Cytokinesis occurs. It pinches off into 4 haploid daughter cells. So instead of 2 at the beginning, it started out with 1 with meiosis. Then it divided and you ended up with 2. Well, those 2 cells went through that division process yet again and those two became 4. So in meiosis, you end up with 4. This is what meiosis looks like in prophase 1, metaphase 1, and anaphase 1. You have your chromosomes are condensed. You have your chromosomes align in metaphase. And you have chromosomes separate here in anaphase, and they're moving to the opposite poles. Then in telophase, you're ready here to pinch off, and a nucleus begins to form the membrane, and you end up with 2 daughter cells. But we're not finished, because remember, in meiosis, you have another division. You do not replicate. After this happens, the DNA is not copying itself again. You have that same DNA in those 2, and they go right on into the next phase of lining up. Chromosomes separate here in anaphase, moving to opposite poles. And then here in telophase, we have them pinching off and becoming 4 cells. Mitosis versus meiosis. The results of mitosis is you end up with 2 diploid body cells with 46 chromosomes. In meiosis, you have 4 haploid cells. And haploid, remember, you have half the number, so there's 23. Cells are genetically identical in mitosis, like our body cells. They form the same exact body cells. And in meiosis, they're genetically different. Like your sex cells, there's X sex cells and there's Y sex cells. So there's variation. That's why in meiosis we can look different or have different characteristics. Mitosis occurs in somatic, which is body cells, and then meiosis occurs in sex cells. Summary of what we have talked about. DNA replication occurs during interphase before nuclear division begins. It does that same thing in meiosis. It occurs once during the interphase. The number of divisions in mitosis, you have 1 division. It goes through prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And in meiosis, you have 2, each including prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Then the number of daughter cells, you have 2 at mitosis, and you have 4 with meiosis. And the role or the purpose of these divisions, the purpose of the division in mitosis is that we are able to grow. We're able to repair cells and produce cells that grow and repair tissue. With meiosis, the purpose is it produces gametes, which reduces chromosome number by half and introduces genetic variability or variation among the gametes. In other words, everybody is able to look different because of the variations in the gametes that are produced by mom's egg and dad's sperm. This is all I've got today on cell division. I hope you have a good afternoon. Thank you.